Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Sheikh, I want you to...
Coach.
Okay, so you just gave a talk, okay? And
Yes.
your talk was regarding sins. Now, what I want to do, because I was thinking about this, and I think that the biggest thing is between the time when you were a young adolescent man and now, I feel as though it's become a lot easier to sin. So what I want you to do now is imagine that you are speaking to yourself at 18 years of age. So imagine that I am you at 18 years old and now you've been thrown into this world. Give me some advice on how to avoid sin and kind of...
SubhanAllah. What a deep point and question. I would say that I'm not that old, so I think that...
It was you 15 years ago.
15 years ago, yeah. Look, the avenues to sin are much. And in the class we spoke a lot about the glance, the madkhal of the glance. You know, Ibn al-Qayyim, he talks about the fact that the seed that's planted to start the sin comes from, you know, one of four places, and one of them is just the glance. So I think that for a lot of people, we live in a very image-based society. Actually, Neil Postman, he had this book, I forgot the name of the book, but his thesis was basically this idea that we moved from a print-based society to an image-based society. Print-based meaning things that are published, you're reading different things, journals, newspapers, magazines, to image-based, where things are all based on photos, non-published, completely anybody, it's just a free-for-all. And so image-based societies come with the challenge because all those things and those images that you're seeing is going to trigger a lot of different things. I think the biggest advice that I'd give, you know, to myself, young Zohair at, you know, 18, is really about controlling and focusing on the madkhal of the eyes. And if a person can control that, then everything else is downstream. The thoughts are downstream, the fantasies are downstream, the actions are downstream, the steps are downstream, everything's downstream from that, as we learned. So the battle is really about the gaze, and as Ibn al-Qayyim said, that's actually the easiest battle out of all the other things. It's so hard to go against desires and when you're determined to do something, but it's very easy to just look away.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I wanted
By the way,
to...
where's our, we have no drinks, this is an empty table this
That's
time.
okay,
Huh?
we're fine.
Is it okay?
Yeah,
I'm
we
kinda
got this.
thirsty.
You can have some of my
We
water.
should have our
Here, go.
expired
Drink
Florio.
it.
Bismillah. Okay, Bismillah. We got some water.
I'm not sick.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. I wanted to
We have
speak
actually
to
a
you
question
to...
here.
Oh, we do? Okay, what's your question, brother?
Yeah, you can ask from there. You want to give him the mic?
I can repeat it as well if you like.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you can speak directly there.
Welcome to After Hours, brother. Alhamdulillah.
No, just a quick question regarding the desires you were talking about just now. I have like example, if I have a goal or a desire to get to use it as a motivation, right? Like you said, that it can be positive, but then also I also believe that that when you have a desire or goal, sometimes it starts off positive, but then it can be corrupt, or you can turn corrupt with that desire or goal. So what's the best way to kind of like counteract that, or kind of like achieve that goal in a good
Are we
sense?
talking about a worldly goal or a dunyawi or a dini goal?
A worldly
A
goal.
worldly goal, okay. So the question is essentially, we spoke about in the class about desire and the fact that setting worldly goals is not necessarily a negative thing. And it's actually can be positive. Ibn al-Qayyim includes it as one of the 4 positive thought domains, right? Achieving worldly benefit, repelling worldly harm, achieving akhirah benefit, and repelling akhirah harm. So the question was basically, how do you actually set goals in this world without becoming consumed by it? And that's actually the most dangerous thing about the world, is that it is a very consumptive world. You can get very much consumed by it. You can lose yourself along the way. This is why Allah constantly reminds us in the Quran about the deceptive nature of this world. إِنَّمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا لَعِبٌ وَلَهُ. That this worldly life is just play and amusement. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, you know, إِنَّا جَعَلْنَا that we have placed upon عَلَى الْأَرْضِ زِينَةً لَهَا لِنَبْلُوَهُمْ أَيُّهُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. That we've placed upon the earth all these things that are just beautiful distractions so that we test people. So the idea is that, but at the same time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about تَبْدَغُونَ فَضْلًا مِّن رَبِّكُمْ, that you seek out the bounty of your Lord as well. And the Prophet ﷺ encourages us to make dua, Allahumma inni as'aluka ilman nafi'a wa rizqan tayyiba wa amalan mutaqabbala. Oh Allah, I ask you for beneficial knowledge, for good and pure rizq, and for actions that are accepted. And so you see these kind of two different ways in which the world is being presented. It's a world of opportunity, but the whole point is when it's focused on the world, that opportunity can become a threat to your soul. It can become something that you lose yourself and you start to become focused on the actual objectives of the ego. Now here's the point. There's objectives of the ego and then there's objectives of your soul, you can say, or your ruh. Objectives of the nafs ammar bisu and the objectives of the nafs mutma'inna, however you want to categorize it. The objectives of the soul or the higher self is looking for this world as a means to something greater. They're never looking at this world as an end. Like, I want to get this career because I'm happy to be at a high status job. It's a means to another end. And many times, the way that people kind of trick themselves into saying, I'm sincere, oh yeah, I just heard the talk. Muslims should be at the forefront of things. You'll hear people say this. The way to really check yourself is, do you actually have a solid plan of what you're going to do with that wealth or that status or that degree afterwards? Like, is there actually something tangible? Or is it just once I have this, I can do good things as well. That's a sign that you're focused more on your ego wants rather than the ruh. The ruh will be, I really need to influence politics or influence healthcare or influence whatever it may be in this way and I'll be able to do good in this way. And this is something that'll be good for Allah. And in order to do that, I have to be taken seriously. And in order to be taken seriously, I have to go on this journey. That is the proper way of conceptualizing your goal of this dunya. Because at the end of the day, this dunya, to achieve dini goals, you need actually worldly resources. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ in his seerah, much of the activity in the seerah was about acquiring, at its root, worldly resources. A safe city, that's a worldly resource, right? And so he was looking at Ta'if, delegations would come in Hajj and he'd be looking for people to take them. And then, of course, Medina was there. But that Medina was not the point of just having a city to just live it up. It was a means to then establish a haven of a prophetic city. Do you see that?
So you're saying is that the best way to kind of achieve these desires without getting corrupted is not to just say, oh yeah, when I achieve these things, like I'm gonna do good things. It's more like when I achieve these things, I have to do A, B, C, D, like very, very precisely once I achieve it, like what I need to do.
Exactly. And that's obviously beyond the very clear goal of every Muslim man, which is to provide for their family. So obviously that's a completely legitimate goal and objective and intention. I want to be able to provide for my family because that's something that's a responsibility that we have. But anything beyond that, that's something that should be linked to some sort of dini objective.
And if it's something that's in the path of Allah, is one of the things that you could do is you could question yourself and ask yourself, if someone else was to do this, but I know that they would do a better job than me, would it be a good question to ask so that you could go, okay, so that means that if I would be accepting of that, then that means I'm actually doing this in the path of Allah.
Yeah, and you see that beautifully in the story of Musa alayhi salam. Like, he is literally chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this mission. And incredible the sincerity of Musa alayhi salam. Firstly, he reflects on his personal weaknesses. فَأَرْسِلْ إِلَى هَارُونَ. So, bring my brother with me. Like this, the humility and the sincerity of Musa alayhi salam is incredible at that moment, right? Like, most people, I mean, if you're chosen for something, it's like, Allah chose me for this. If anyone else chooses for the person, yeah, I'm right for this job, yeah, I can do this. He has the humility to recognize his weaknesses, and he actually asks for his brother to come. And that's the exact point there. It's that recognition of, if I'm sincere to this mission, I want it to get done, then I should actually put the best person forward. And if someone is better than me, then I should actually be saying, you go ahead, rather than myself.
As far as I'm aware as well, is Musa the only prophet who was actually told, like, no, there's someone who knows more than you, which was Khidr alayhi salam, right?
Yes.
So he actually got humbled in that regard too, in a way, didn't he?
Yeah, subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed him this. And it wasn't that Musa alayhi salam was na'udhu billah arrogant or anything like this, because the prophets have a level of usma for these sorts of things. Like, they don't commit major sins, and they're not described by these, like, disease of the heart. So it was not about an arrogance, it was just about a lack of, he just didn't know. He didn't know that Khidr.
Well, why would he just assume that there's like another person?
What's really interesting about that story as well if you actually look at the stories themselves, they kind of remind you of different situations in Musa's own life. So like a boat trying to escape a tyrant with a tyrant king, and then the threat of being drowned. Like, does that not just scream out to you what happened to Fir'aun and then the drowning? The killing of the innocent boy. Musa a.s. also accidentally killed someone. And then the good deed that they did by setting up the wall, and then Musa asked for payment. Why? Because Musa a.s. also did a very good deed for someone just for the sake of it. And that was for the two women, those two girls. And then what did he get? He got a reward from it, and it would benefited them. So each time Musa a.s. reacted based on his previous experience. I think it's really interesting that the things that he encountered were very eerily similar to things that he actually experienced before.
I wanted to make it slightly more personal because I know you've been on quite a journey yourself, and you came from Canada, and as a young man you used to play a lot of basketball, you've told me.
Yeah.
So what kind of experience do you have that you can kind of give regarding the kinds of issues you were encountering with youth in Canada? Because I know you started Dawah at quite a young age, didn't you? So what kind of issues did they have compared to the issues that you see youth facing here in Australia?
Wow, what a question. That's like a whole conference theme. I would say that, look, there's demographic differences as well as time differences. I would say that there was an issue of, like when I was growing up, there was actually not much Islam anywhere. Like we actually, like now we take it for granted. I mean, you look and turn on the TV, all the sports. I mean, you look at the UFC, it's like taken over by Muslim champions. Like there was a time where just one Muslim person on the television was like
Muhammad Ali back then, wasn't it?
Okay, come on, man.
That's too long away. Okay, it was like Mike Tyson maybe. Yeah, exactly. My dad met Muhammad Ali, so I just remembered.
Really, he did?
Yeah, he did in Pakistan.
In Pakistan?
But yeah, anyway, yeah, go
really?
on.
What do you mean, and anyway, go on? I want to hear the story.
I didn't have anything interesting to say about it.
So, like, what?
You just met him, he was doing a Q&A in Pakistan, and he's like, I went to it.
But why
and
was your dad in Pakistan? He's from Afghanistan.
My dad's gone all around the world.
MashaAllah.
He speaks 6 languages.
So he went to Pakistan, and Muhammad Ali, which year was this, do you know?
Oh, I have no idea.
So
like probably like 1980s, I'm pretty sure.
So your dad met Muhammad Ali and you met Khabib.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
look at that.
Exactly.
MashaAllah.
SubhanAllah.
Okay. Anyways, but yeah. So as I was saying, there was a whole issue there of identity. That was a big thing. Like people didn't feel proud of being Muslim.
Yeah.
Like you see a lot of young people they're proud to wear their thobes now. They're proud to be different. They're proud to be distinct.
1988
when he went to Pakistan. Oh, we have.
Saram knows when my dad went to Pakistan.
What does Rogan call his guy with the
young Jamie? Yeah, he's Googling for us.
Oh, man, alhamdulillah. So 1988, that's when your dad was in Pakistan.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. But yeah, there was an issue with identity and a lot of
lack of pride in being Muslim.
Yes, there was, because the thing is that also like if you looked at the people who were Muslim and stuff, a lot of them would just come from immigrant backgrounds. It was, most speakers, they didn't have a good command of the English language early on. Like later on in the later 2000s, you started to have like Al-Maghrib formed and some of these institutions, and in even bigger conferences like the Reviving Islamic Conference came, and you started to have a lot of people who early people grew up in like the 80s and 90s, go overseas to learn and study and come back, and they had a good command of the English language. But before that, it's like, it's very foreign. Islam was a very foreign thing. It was hard to find, Muslims, who actually didn't have an accent. It was hard to find any visible Muslim presence anywhere. Like I remember pre 9/11 and post 9/11. And pre 9/11, it was like nobody knew what Islam was. So at that time, that was kind of main things. And you'll find that a lot of stuff that was done was geared towards like Muslim gear and like trying to increase pride in being Muslim by having conferences and bringing people together. Yeah. I think in our time, Islam is everywhere. And I think people are actually proud of generally being Muslim and identifying as Muslim actually. The issue is level of practice. And the issue is people will say, yeah, I'm Muslim, and then they do a whole bunch of other things that would kind of be a bit strange, right? Like going into the desires and whatnot. And so I think the challenge here is not about identity, although that's still an issue. Obviously, there are people who are not as prideful of being Muslim. But obviously, as numbers grow, then there's strength in numbers. But I think the issue here is actually a bit more of It's like a collective religiosity, or it's identitarian religiosity. That's the term, identitarian religiosity. Allah references in the Quran. وَقَالُوا كُونُوا هُودًا أَوْ نَصَارَى تَهْتَدُوا. You be a Christian or you be a Jew and you'll become, that's what they say. Be a Christian, identify as a Christian, identify as a Jew, and you'll be paradise. قُلْ بَلْ مِلَّةَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ حَنِيفًا. But rather it should be the way of Abraham, meaning the actual value, the concept, and the actual intent behind it. So I think a lot of Muslims are content with identitarian religiosity, like, they call it based culture online, right? There's woke culture and then there's based culture, right? And so and so like people who are just happy to just assert themselves as Muslim and label themselves as such, wear what they need to wear and say what they need to say, but their actual spiritual practice on the inside, their actual qiyam al-layl, their actual fasting, their actual involvement in the community, their actual hearts, it's completely different. But they're satisfied with identitarian religiosity. And that's also an issue because it's exacerbated by a few things. It's also exacerbated by politics, because a lot of people, especially from kind of the left wing, and even the right wing, both wings actually, they are trying to turn Islam into this kind of political identity.
Exactly.
That the right wants to be racist towards and the left wants to save. And so then it also fuels this idea of Islam is just this identity label.
Identitarian.
Allah alam,
I think it's interesting you said that, because I see, you can tell me how much of an issue you believe this to be, but I see that there's some Muslims where obviously they identify as Muslim, but a lot of their ideology and their views and their practices can actually fall under some kind of Western ideology. Like, you see the liberal type Muslims, or like you said, like the right wing type Muslims. And I think that this is an issue for us Muslims who grow up in the West, because we have all these ideas of what love is, or what the legal system should look like, or kind of how your relationship should be with your family and your friends. It's hard for us to actually think about it from an Islamic point of view, because we grew up in the West. So you could see there's certain issues with, the LGBT movement, where Muslims are becoming uncomfortable with the views of Islam on these issues because we grew up in the West. So is there kind of like a lens that we're looking through because we grew up in the West, and how do we actually break out of that and look at it more from an Islamic point of view?
Again, a question that deserves its own complete lecture, mashallah. But to summarize, this is good. It's testing me to be a bit more concise. So everyone has a lens, no matter where you are in the world and what time that you kind of grew up in. And that lens are certain cultural assumptions that come into your field of vision, and that's how you see certain aspects of society and the way society should run and the way certain things should be. It can be across time or even across place. The challenge is always about trying to, a lot of people say, well, that's my cultural background, the West, or even back home. What's the Islamic perspective? So from one angle, there's a recognition of urf in Islam. There's a recognition of custom, al-'ada muhakkama, that custom actually carries legal weight in Islam, meaning the custom of the people and the culture of the people. There's certain things that will determine what is ethical, what is moral, or what are the boundaries, or what are the red lines. Sometimes it's left to the actual culture. Now, obviously, there are thawabit and things that don't change at all. And so when it comes to trying to kind of separate culture from Islam, there's an element of Islam exists within multiple cultures, and it has, and that's one of the beautiful success stories of Islam, is that Islam went to North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, the Persian areas, what was previously the Byzantine areas, now Sham or Syria and the Middle East, to Transoxania, to Central Asia, to subcontinent, to the Malaysians and Indonesias, and each place there was an element of culture that was existing there that did influence the way. It's not obviously Islam in its beliefs and in its ritual ibadah practices and in its law doesn't change. Like these are the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to govern not just worship but also our social relationships, our marriages, divorce laws, inheritance, etc., businesses. So that's all there. But there's certain things like the type of clothing, the colors, all these sorts of things that start to look a bit different. So when it comes to the West, there are certain elements that there's going to be an indigenization of Islam to a Western culture, and we're part of that story.
Right,
Of
yeah.
what does a Western Muslim look like? But like, for example, if I said sub-Saharan African Muslim or a Bosnian Muslim or a Afghani Muslim or a Pakistani Muslim, you already in your head come up with this archetype of the dress that they wear.
Exactly.
Right? Those are what is a Western
Or the words
Muslim?
they use, or the
But it's so
slang.
interesting. The Western Muslim is interesting because, well, just to kind of, I'll just go on this tangent. So like, it's interesting because the West itself doesn't really have much of a culture.
Yeah, that's
If that makes sense. Like in all these other places, there was a strong culture. There was
Australia
rites of
doesn't really,
passage.
yeah.
Australia doesn't. There was rites of passage. There were things that people did when the kid grew up. There was things that they did in their marriages. I mean, what's the culture here? I mean, it's so funny whenever you see the right-wingers get upset. They're changing our way of life. Like, what are you talking
don't
about
have one.
exactly? Burgers, fries, and like drinking beer. Like, that's pretty much what they actually describe. And like, you know, it's like it's not too much of an actual culture. Like certainly in Europe, it's a different story. But like the kind of Anglo lands, like the original Aboriginal lands that Anglo people went to and kind of colonized and then wiped and genocided the Aboriginal people. These places, you don't find too much of a hard culture. And so what you find amongst Western Muslims is like you go to a masjid, there's no uniform way that they dress. There's no uniform way that they do their weddings. And I don't know if there ever will be. Like the Australian Muslim way of wedding, like what you serve pavlova and what, sorry.
You said pavlova and baklava is
No,
Turkish. It's like, it's not Australian.
Come on, Jamie. Like, what is it, right? So I think that that's an interesting thing in the sense that it's going to be a culture without too much of a culture, but in the sense that we've also then become Western because Western people don't have too much of an identity as well.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyways, going back to your point about how do we remove these biases, that's why it's so important to learn. And when you look at our ilm and our ulum, our scholars throughout, we belong to a tradition that actually really focused on being able to focus on the signals we talked about and being able to remove cultural influences and to be able to come to a purity of understanding. Mahajjat al-bayda, as the Prophet ﷺ said, layluha kanaharuha, la yazighu anha illa halik. Its light is like its day, its night is like its day, and nobody deviates it from it except they become destroyed. So there's certainly a clear path, and that's for the ulama to traverse and to be able to articulate to people about, this part is an acceptable cultural influence. This part is actually acceptable.
Yeah, maybe I guess you could be a little bit more mindful as well when you're kind of learning things through the Western education system too, and these different ideologies, and kind of like weighing through what things do I believe to be right and wrong because of actually the Western culture, right?
Yeah, that's
because
true.
wasn't one of the actual hikmas in bringing Islam to the Arabian Peninsula because those people weren't as opinionated. They were kind of like a clean slate, right, compared to the Roman and Byzantines.
Yeah,
well, they didn't have all these ideologies, the Greeks and the philosophy and everything.
So Muhammad Asad mentions this in his book, Road to Mecca, which, by the way, I always say is required reading for every Muslim living in the West from year 12 onwards. I think it should be required reading of all Islamic school curriculums.
It's our homework. We have to by next week. And you question us on it.
All Islamic school curriculums, year 12 English, they have to include this book. It's just an incredible piece of literature. But he talks about this reflection about how the desert is this vastness, it's a bit of an empty void, and there wasn't too much of a culture there that Islam was able to kind of grow within the Arabs as its own force, and then it was then able to go to other places, and it wasn't something that was tied down to one particular culture that took it together. Wallahu ta'ala alam. And as to your point as well, like that's outside of the kind of more non-intellectual aspects of culture. As for the intellectual aspects of culture, you're right. Actually, modernism and postmodernism, liberalism, a lot of Muslims are certainly influenced by this. And interestingly, I would say there's an easy way you can spot the influence in regards to people who have very liberal views and maybe perhaps different views to things like traditional family morality or to whatever it may be. You might find that you have people who are starting to be influenced by Western ideology in this regard, and it swerves them away from that kind of pure aqidah that they should have. I would say even the other way as well. Modernism itself is really born from this kind of Cartesian approach, so that's Descartes, of this kind of skepticism, but also this elevation of human reason and logic as like the only way towards truth.
Yeah, and science.
And so, but you find a lot of people who are not liberal at all, but are still influenced by this idea that anything that's true has to be given a logical proof and has to be proven scientifically. And you actually saw that in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, the da'wah was really focused on trying to find proofs that would be palpable to a Western epistemology. And so you have the scientific miracles of the Quran, you have these kind of the resurrection of the Kalam cause, all these different, these arguments. That's just as much a product of Western education
That's a good point,
as the other side as well. That's actually taking the epistemology and adopting it, whereas challenging the very epistemology that is taught and internalized in Western schools and replacing it with the Quranic epistemology of truth and hidayah and morality and understanding, that's probably the better way. And then when you do that as well, you start to notice everything else changes in terms of the decision-making process. You notice a lot of people on the other side, they can become very dogmatic. Everything is black or white. That's very much a modernist thing. That's why you had these totalitarian regimes and all these wars in the early 20th century, because that was a product of modernism, which championed reason and said, if this is the way and it's proven rationally, then that's it. Anyways, so that's a modern problem.
To be honest, I didn't expect it to get that deep, but it just kind of came out. So, no, I mean, it's good. That I think it was kind of me that took it to the deep questions, but we'll take it to a more lighthearted note.
Okay.
We're going to, I guess, discuss. I actually haven't seen these terms yet, but
so what is this? So
we like to tell you about internet slang words, so we're actually going to go through them.
This was supposed to be a rapid fire at the beginning, because I always thought that the podcast started with this thing like some.
We've taken over.
But then you're like insisted that this be done at the end.
I think it was just interesting to do it at the end.
Very few people even get to the end probably with these things.
Yeah, I guess.
If you're watching this at the end, just comment and let us know that you're at the end.
Yeah, and let us know if we get any of the terms wrong. Okay, there's a lot of these that I don't like. I really don't like most of these.
So what's going on, first of all?
So these are internet words that people use that are chronically online. I don't want to attack these people, but they spend a lot of time online and they've kind of come up with these words. And these words are almost exclusively used online. Okay. Right? So I don't want to use some of the words that, some of them are very explicit as well. But I don't want to use the ones that people use in real life because they're supposed to be online terms, right? Okay. So we'll just choose a few, and I like that he's actually categorized them as well.
Who is he?
So our brother Siram, our young Jamie has, so there's Millennial, Gen Z, and...
I know what Millennial is.
Millennial.
I know what Gen Z is.
Okay, so we have...
Gen Alpha.
I mean, some of these are very easy. So FOMO. Well, we know what that is,
don't we? Yeah, FOMO is fear of missing out.
Okay, great. Well, that's 1 point for you.
Yeah, was that
so we're actually scoring you now.
Was that in the Millennial?
That was in the Millennial. I feel like this is not a Millennial.
So.
Okay, so you've got that. Okay, let's make...
It's a warm-up.
That's 1 point. So you get 1 point for Millennial because you are Millennial.
I'm warming up. Okay. Push-ups. Bismillah.
Okay, so do you know what bet means?
Bet? Yeah, I hear a lot of young people say this. It's like if... someone says, if someone
we need to talk.
If someone wants to, this is the hardest question you've asked all day. If someone wants to guarantee that if they want to affirm a statement that was just said, they say bet.
Oh, so they're not
almost like. Yeah, it's like a thumbs up. Like it's like.
That's
bet,
not how I thought it was. I thought it meant. I thought bet just means yes.
It means just yes. It's not.
That's what I thought. Or just means like all right.
I thought it's doing tasdeeq of the.
I think it's. I don't like this one. I think it's lame.
Of the claim. Okay.
You should just say yes. They want to sound cool. Like let's have to say it in a really short way. I have to say bet.
Yeah, all right. Say something haram too.
So I'd bet. Okay. AMA. Have you heard this one before?
AMA?
Yeah.
Like the Australian Medical Association?
No. It's not Australian. It's a saying.
AMA?
This is actually a Reddit thing. I can explain this.
AMA? Okay.
Where they say...
Ama?
It starts with ask.
Ask me anything.
Okay, he gets 2.5 points. Because that'll be half a point, right? Okay, we'll move on to Gen Z.
Wait, that was not Millennial.
That was Millennial.
Not Millennial. And,
well, I mean, he wasn't alive then.
And AMA was...
Oh, wow. There's Gen Alpha as well. Okay, we'll do 2 from Gen Z. Okay, this is 2 points. So we have POG.
POG?
Yeah, have you heard of POG before?
I used to play with POGs, like those little...
It's a big fan.
POG? Yeah. Oh, player of the game.
No, it's not player of the game. Yes. Is that what it means?
Player of the game, yes.
Oh, I thought it's player of the game.
I actually didn't know that. I don't know why he looks so shy. He's literally off camera. He's off camera and he looks shy.
When you type it, you have no idea the reference.
Wait, is it player of the game? It's the
You actually got me on that one. I didn't know that. It's from an emote.
Play of the game. Oh, play of the game. Okay, POG's play
It's
of
from
the
an
game.
emoji on a website called Twitch. And there's an emote called Pog Champion, or Pog Champ. And I sound so old. And it's basically like a guy with like his mouth open, like with a big smile,
I thought
saying you did something
I've
right.
seen Saad say that a lot on
So if you do
WhatsApp.
something good, he'll say Pog.
Yeah, but I would read it as POG. I didn't.
So you actually got it even though you didn't know the word. I didn't even know that, and I knew the word. So that's 2 points. So I think he's on 4.5 points now.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. I don't know if it's a good thing if you get this. Okay. Ratioed. I really like this one.
Ratioed.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you told me this.
This is a good one.
This
This
one
is
I
a good
didn't know.
one.
This one is you basically on Twitter or on Instagram or anything. If you post one comment or one like, and then the other, and then everything else gets commented complete opposite to what you're saying, then you got ratioed.
That's actually a good one. Wait, actually, did you explain that correctly? So it's ratioed if the person gets way more retweets and likes than you.
If the reply
Yeah.
to your original comment gets more likes than you.
Oh, so the refutation.
exactly.
Yeah. What if it's not a refutation, but the reply?
It's not even a good one. Everyone just likes it anyway because it. Yeah.
But just comments ratio.
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
really? Ratioed.
Okay. This one I don't really like. Oh, there's a lot of good ones here in the Gen
I
Alpha.
don't know how you're like. It's really funny. You're really judging them. You're like, I don't like this one.
There's
I
quite
like
a
this
few.
one. I mean, they're all just
This
like
one triggers me, but NPC,
non-player character, right?
non-player character. But how would someone use it? Like Gen Alpha person.
If someone's doing something that's like useless, I don't know, like a.
No, that's not it. Actually, this one's dangerous. I wanted to talk about this one because because you remember people call each other sheep, right? Like conspiracy theorists
Yeah,
call
yeah.
people sheep, yeah. And then this is like the evolution of that. It's now called NPC.
Oh, okay.
And I don't like it for that reason because you're basically saying like they're not human. Like you just believe that because you're a sheep. Like you're just an NPC. And it's like someone at their job. Like everyone acts like an NPC at your job, right?
like,
Anyway.
to be honest, I'm
Yeah.
not familiar with what an NPC actually does because I never played that many video games.
Okay,
so-
fair enough. Yeah, an NPC just like interacts with the player character, but they're like a side character. Like not even a side character. They don't even have their own opinions. Yeah, they're just They're like a robot. Yeah,
They're
so
like
I think
robots, so that's
it's
what they're saying.
dangerous.
So you think it's dehumanizing?
It's dehumanizing
it will
people,
lead
and it's just categorizing them. And the funniest thing about it is, if you call people NPC, you're probably an NPC yourself, because it's just a stupid thing to do.
All
Anyway,
right, so
my
we
emotions
shouldn't
came out
be
a bit.
focusing on the racist rhetoric. We should be focusing on all
Exactly.
this NPCs.
Yeah,
that's
that's
a real
true.
dehumanization. Got it.
Seriously, yeah, but only online people, so they're irrelevant in real life.
They're all
I guess.
NPCs, aren't
yeah,
they?
the NPC.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. Okay, last one. I have to make it a short one.
Why does it have to be a short one?
Because are we getting low on time or something? Or?
It's not like there's a time.
Oh, we
like
don't have a time. Okay. What about Sigma?
Sigma.
Sigma. Yeah.
Sigma, I know this one.
Yeah.
Sigma, because they called Habib Sigma, I think.
Yeah, they did.
And that's someone who's not interested in women or something like that?
No, but he's married, so how could you call him Sigma?
So what is it then?
I guess it is someone who's not really that interested in women.
Khalas, yeah.
But they call it like a mode, like when you're in Sigma mode, where you just like, you know, they
Focused on
say-
your goals. And so you're not-
Exactly, yeah.
yeah.
Alpha, beta.
Yeah.
So sigma is just like above all that.
And then
Anyway,
there's...
Might be a good thing then. Like youngsters and
Yeah, is that a good thing?
I don't
Is that
think it's a
something
good
desired?
thing, because I think it's kind of misogynist, isn't it?
Is it?
I think it is a little bit, like there's a bit of misogynistic undertone to it.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe
you
so.
go.
I don't know. We'll evaluate these and we'll get back to it next week. Like, right, I think that's it.
That was it?
Yeah.
Okay, alhamdulillah.
I think we went a bit
Alhamdulillah.
over time, that's why.
Look, next time we need some drinks as well, inshallah. I think I could guess this one.
It's water.
It's water, alhamdulillah. That was good,
Yeah.
alhamdulillah. Excellent.
Okay.
But yeah, jazakumullah khairan, man.
Okay, thank you. We have
we'll see you guys next week.
Massive.